Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to take a look at product positioning, and this is all about where products fit in the minds of consumers. So please get out your notes, follow the STORM philosophy for note-taking, and sit back and enjoy. So what are we going to look at today? Well, first we're going to identify just what we mean by positioning. We are then going to move on to how to position a product, and then lastly, the various types of positioning that marketers use when positioning products. So what is positioning? The best idea is to think about yourselves. Are you fans of sports teams? Are you fans of the Raptors, let's say? If you're a fan of the Raptor, you have taken that position that you support that team. If you're a Raptors fan, would you ever wear a jersey for the, let's say, Brooklyn Nets, the New York Knicks? You wouldn't, because you are a fan of the Toronto Raptors. That's your position. Well, when it comes to marketing, this is no different. Marketers position products to appeal to a certain demographic, certain consumer. They create an image of their brand that they want consumers to accept. So marketers try and create these attributes for products that consumers will respond positively to. And this creates a place in the consumer's mind, so that when they think of a certain brand, they think of it having a certain style, characteristic, features, position. And for example, many car companies will try and position their products as fast, as fun, as exciting, as fuel efficient. These are all positions that marketers have taken with that certain brand. Now it means that you target your product towards a certain target market, which does mean that you alienate other consumers, that you don't attract other consumers. But that's okay. Again, you're positioning your product to appeal to a very specific set of consumers, and therefore hopefully maximize your success. One of the ways to do this is to, again, revisit the product map. Marketers will position their products along various axes that contain various attributes. And so they are able to position their product in the marketplace. This is relative to the competitive products, relative to customer needs, and other products in their own product line. By conducting a product mapping exercise, you can see where there's a vacant place in the market, where you can create a product to fill that vacant space and hopefully maximize sales. And so the ultimate goal with product positioning is to fulfill those unmet needs in the marketplace. If your product can fill those needs better than any other product, you will be different from your competition. You will have positioned your product to appeal to a very specific consumer segment and therefore reap the sales from that consumer segment. And no other product can do that. And how do we position our product? Well, we have to look at 5 clearly distinctive parts of this process. We have to think about the positioning premise. We have to identify that it's long-term, that it's relevant, that you're clear and coherent, and that you are distinctive. By addressing each of these aspects of positioning, you will ensure that you have an effective product position. In order to successfully position your product, you need to accept the premise of positioning. This premise is very simple, that when you position your product and therefore attract a very specific set of consumers, you will lose other consumers. If I were to create a new radio station, let's say, well, I would target my radio station to a very specific set of consumers who like a very specific style of music. By doing so, I would lose out on all of the other music fans out there. So if I were to create a new rock station, I would lose those fans who like, let's say, Justin Bieber. Or if I were to create a Justin Bieber only radio station, I would probably lose everyone. No, I'm just kidding. But you get the idea. However, some companies are able to somehow disregard this premise. Nike, for example, markets its products to everyone. And so if you are a large enough brand, if you have enough support, if you are effective at everything else, in some cases, very few cases, you can still market your product to everyone. The second idea here is that you have to address the long-term aspect of your product, that you need to position it over the long term. You do not want to create a product in, let's say, this year with a certain position, and then next year change that position, and then the following year change it again. This confuses your consumers. They don't buy into your product if you are doing this. So you need to accept that your positioning needs to be long term. And so if you try to position your product around the technological aspect of your product, you are most likely to fail with your positioning. Technology changes. It can be copied. It can be improved upon. And companies will steal that technology or use it as well in their product. And so if you position it around that technology, you are going to fail in the long term. The next is the idea that you have to have a relevant position. That you as a company can say, you know what, we're a great company because of all these various reasons. But if it doesn't connect with the consumer, if the consumer doesn't buy into any of that, or if they aren't looking for any of those characteristics, those features, those attributes, then you do not have a relevant positioning. You need to address what consumers want, and you need to make sure that your position strikes a chord with those consumers, that they look at your product and they say, that's what I want. The fourth aspect is the idea of making a clear and coherent position. Don't confuse your customer. Don't try and position your products along all sorts of different attributes and characteristics. Make it very simple, make it very clear. Tim Hortons is always fresh, always available. Starbucks is premium products. Very simple, very clear, and consumers will respond in kind to these very clear and coherent positioning techniques. Lastly, you want to make sure that your product has distinctive positioning, that it stands out amongst the rest. The consumer needs to recognize this. They need to see that, yes, your product, your company, your brand has that very distinctive position in the marketplace. Canadian Tire has that distinctive Canadian position in the marketplace. So now that we understand that marketers have to address those 5 various aspects of positioning, they now can focus on the different types of positioning. Should they make it a benefit position, a target position, a price position, a distribution position, or a service position? Marketers will try and at least address one of these types of positioning. So the first type of positioning is benefit positioning. This is the idea that marketers try to convey to consumers that their product will benefit them in various different ways, more so than their competition. For example, a car company might state that their car has the lowest fuel economy in the class, that it runs on electricity or natural gas or some other fuel source that provides a benefit to the consumer. Shoes might be marketed towards consumers that they offer a certain benefit because they make you look better, taller, they're more comfortable, let's say. These are benefits that marketers try to convey to the consumer. Consumers expect every product to give them some sort of benefit, but it is up to the marketer to position their products in such a way. So if consumers are looking for an alarm clock that doesn't just beep annoyingly, but actually plays soothing sounds when you're trying to sleep, this is a benefit that the product has, and it's up to marketers to position it in that way. However, when you create some sort of benefit with your product, it can often be easily copied. And as soon as it can be easily copied, then that position is lost. And marketers need to continuously update and improve the benefit of their product to maintain a benefit position. The next type of positioning is target positioning. This is very, very simple. Position your product to attract a very specific consumer. The consumer segment is your target market. And if you position your product as such to attract that target market, you have effectively achieved target positioning. Snowboards should be marketed towards teenagers, not to baby boomers or over 50 or 60-year-olds. That would be ineffective target positioning. If you have effectively positioned your product to a certain target consumer, then that consumer will think that that product belongs to them, that they own it, that it's theirs, and that no other consumer segment can take that away from them. The one thing with target positioning, though, is that it might be something that's popular, that it's a trend or a fad like we've looked at before, and that may not last, right? Those go away. And so target positioning, again, needs to be updated, needs to stay relevant to the consumer. The third type of positioning is price positioning. Price positioning, there are 2 options, high or low. Medium pricing, there is no positioning on medium pricing. There are just too many products in that same price range, so that would be ineffective price positioning. If you are to position your product, you need to make sure it's either high end or low end. If it is high end, then you're positioning your product to give the consumer status. It's not necessarily about the quality. It's not necessarily about the service. It is all about the social status that the product will provide for the consumer. Now, not to say that it shouldn't have high quality, high service, but it's all about providing social status. That when the consumer wears the watch around, let's say, everyone else knows that they are high social status. Low pricing is quite the opposite. Low pricing is about establishing inexpensive products for consumers, affordable products, trustworthy, affordable products. Now that's key. You cannot market your position as low price but not provide some sort of quality. If this is the case, people will look at your price and say it's lower priced because it's just an inferior product, that it doesn't have the quality. So again, you still have to provide some quality to the low price. IKEA has dominated this category in the furniture market. They have provided fairly good quality for really affordable prices, and that's the key to price positioning. Distribution positioning is all about where your product is available. If you can somehow position your product to say to consumers you can only buy it here, you have effectively achieved distribution positioning. Jones Soda, for example, is not available only in supermarkets or convenience stores. It's also available in some clothing stores. Whereas the Whopper and Life brand are only available at specific locations. These both are effective examples of distribution positioning. If you can get into the new distribution channel first, you'll have quite the advantage. And Amazon.com was that original player in the internet distribution. Right? They were available on the internet and no one else was. And you could buy products over the internet. Now it's common form. Everyone can buy products over the internet. But Amazon has maintained that lead in this category. The last type of positioning is service positioning. This is about how you treat your customers. Being open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, effectively guarantees excellent service because consumers can buy their products whenever they choose. Having a no-hassle return policy so that when you bring the product back to the store, accepted without any questions asked. Or when you walk into a store and they offer you tea or cookies or coffee or comfortable chairs or large dressing rooms. That's all about service. And if you are going to provide service positioning, then you need to make sure that you maintain that service. As soon as you start taking away some of that service, you are losing that service positioning. And so that's part of the problem. Once you guarantee certain services, you need to maintain them over the long term. Well, this brings us to our end of the video. So why do marketers position their products? Why don't they just sell it without saying anything? And if a company chooses not to position its product, what marketing alternatives does it have? So think about these two questions. Make sure you summarize your notes, write down your own discussion questions, and be prepared to share tomorrow. So that's it. That's all. That's everything. We'll see you tomorrow.